Welcome back to Jeff Koinange live at the Villa Rosa Kempinski, here with, no doubt, the best political tag team on TV when these guys show up. And I'm talking about Barrack with the 2 R's Muluka, the man from Emmanuelia, and Dr. PLO Lumumba, Mr. Shakespeare, Mr. Greek mythology himself. When they both show up, you know this is one hot show. I try to get them as often as I can. They're always very busy, but this being June 1, halfway into 2016, we need to take stock. That's what we've been doing. If you're just joining us, you missed a hell of a show. Catch up on it on YouTube. Better yet, read these tweets like I'm doing. Plenty of tweets coming in thick and fast. Keep tweeting at Barrack M, at It's PLO Lumumba, at Koinange Jeff. The hashtag Madaraka, even though some of you are using Politics 101, whatever you want to use. So Frederick Okango, he says, ask my good friend Dr. PLO Lumumba, are you going to apply for the CJ job? Hold the thought.
No, we don't want people from outside the judiciary this time.
You're laughing.
I'm laughing because
we have just said we don't want
been advertised.
And when it is, we don't want people from outside the judiciary, including my brother here.
No, come on.
Nah.
Barrack, why not?
You need that track record of paying on that
You were saying earlier on that they outsourced the Supreme Court judges. They outsourced.
Yes, and see where they have left us. They have even forgotten what they were supposed to be presiding over. They are now presiding over each other. And some of them, matters are coming up tomorrow, for example, and they're involved, and yet they will be on the bench. How? Where on earth?
Let the man answer for himself. Dr. would you?
And my own view is that there's no job that has been advertised, Fred. That is a safe answer.
That's an oblique way of saying
very oblique.
He is available.
But listen, what kind of people, who would you want to see as the next Supreme Court CJ?
You know, Jeff, that is not the way to ask the question. What we want are men and women. There is no shortage of men and women who are good, who are capable of performing. There are good lawyers out there. They are practitioners, they are academics, they are judges who have served in the judiciary, and I believe that they'll come out when the advert has gone out and they have been invited to make the application. There is no shortage. What has happened is that this particular pioneering court, in my view, failed to realize that this was a major calling. And because they failed to realize, they are now suffering in a very corporate manner. Remember, this is the first time that we have had a Supreme Court after the election, after the Constitution of Kenya 2010. And there is no doubt in my mind that on a scale of 1 to 10, this Supreme Court has not performed above 4. And in the minds of many, they have not realized the standard that was set for them. But I can assure you, they are good, seasoned lawyers in this country who are capable of discharging the functions of the judges.
Are they sober?
Yes, indeed. I know sober individuals.
Sober.
And sobriety does not mean that they don't consume alcoholic beverages.
I was about to ask that question.
It means that they can make decisions and they are moved by force of reason, not by any other force.
Yeah, so smoking still has a chance.
Smoking Wanjala is a good mind, is a good friend, is an academic, is a scholar, and is intellectually sober.
Good answer.
I'm talking about intellectual sobriety.
Yes. Barrack?
You need intellectual sobriety, emotional sobriety, spiritual sobriety. You need to be very patient to listen, sometimes completely stone-faced, almost as if you are not there, and yet you are taking it all in. And even when you approach a fellow judge, you approach them with sobriety, with humility. You do not exchange the kinds of communications that we saw in today's press, that there is no mutual respect even within the institution, that seniority itself is not respected. You know, there's a sense in which sometimes we give our seniors the benefit of the doubt. that we do not go around with these things that have come. And you know, these things are very dangerous. They tell you that before you press that send button,
Yes. Read it.
read it,
Or look at it properly.
look at it again, think twice.
Because once you send,
Should I send it?
Yes.
Now, if you are going to be an individual who doesn't think twice before touching that button, don't apply for that job, because you are in the wrong place. And because these people have gone to this place without having what it takes, they don't have the patience.
Yeah.
And that's why they have now forgotten about us. They are fighting. They are busy fighting one another.
Correct.
And our matters are lying fallow in
good
the
point.
courts.
Good point. Barrack Ngaira asks, ask Barrack, with the kind of turnout Court had today at Uhuru Park, what would have happened had Nkaiseri kept to what he said and tried to stop them?
The disaster. And that's why I was saying earlier on, there's nothing wrong with allowing people to express themselves. If they want to come in the streets and jump and dance, and some of them even make themselves look ridiculous, provided that they are not touching anyone else, they are not damaging anybody's property, give them that space. You saw the tensions were very heightened by yesterday afternoon. They were very high. And then it just took the meeting of these people in State House to take the wind out of the sails. The balloon just went puff.
Ahmed from Eastleigh. Not only is he inviting you for some camel milk in Eastleigh,
Yes.
he says you guys are very good. Very good. But
That is very kind.
he's also asking the question, would people like you get into elected office? Would people like you? Doctor,
You know, we both of us
Nah.
have tried to get into elected office,
Yeah.
and the last time we tried, we did not get a very positive response from the electorate.
And the
because-
reason is?
the reason is because we don't worship at the altar of the political demigods. That is the simple
You know,
reason.
you must identify the tribal god. You must go before the tribal
and
demigod.
what, sell your soul?
And you must
Literally.
prostrate yourself before them, and you must and Joe de Graft tells us this story properly in the play titled Muntu, where you find the second son of Muntu who takes over, and everybody has got to come and prostrate
Absolutely.
themselves before them. There are people here. Let me give the example of Raila Odinga, because he spoke about this himself.
Yes.
That people are afraid of him. There are people around him, including especially the political class, the politicians who are around him and who are elected leaders, not necessarily because they love him, but because they fear him. They're afraid that if they are very far, they cannot get it the way they want. That for everything that you're going to do, you must prostrate yourself before him. You can go to central Kenya and you'll find that there are people who are trying to campaign. Some want to be governors, others want to be senators, and there are even people like Governor Munya, who is saying, I'm going to run as governor on a different ticket,
Right.
not on the Jubilee ticket,
Right.
but let us support Uhuru Kenyatta for president. He's afraid. You go to the Rift Valley, you find that there is the deputy president, William Ruto. And if you do not go and do your obeisance before him, you will get nowhere.
You're finished.
And right now there are people out there from these communities, from these tribes, who are saying, look at that Muluka. What is he saying? Who does he think he is?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Basically because I'm saying the truth
The truth.
about the tribal worship.
And these
of-
are grown-ups who are talking, who
Yes.
prostrate themselves in
Yes.
front of these people.
Yes.
Grown-ups.
Yeah, and you know, I'm never going to do that kind of thing.
No.
And that is our
so
undoing.
I'm never going to be elected by anybody in this
Gentlemen,
country.
this reminds me of there's one individual in this country, out of 45 million people, I know there's one individual who's laughing every day he wakes up. That man's name is Daniel Arab Moy, because he created all this. All these were his orphans. And now the chess game that's going around, when they all with him at one point, then they all split, and then these ones went this way, these ones went this way. Isn't that how it ended up?
That is how it is.
He's the ultimate puppeteer.
He's the puppeteer, as you've rightly said, and this chessboard that we see is a chessboard that he created, and all the pawns are the pawns that he created. And you remember at one time he said, one day you will remember I told you that when multi-party comes, it will divide this country into little ethnic blocks. Today the reality is that whatever coalition we have, these are ethnic coalitions, and our politics is defined in that way. If you come from a community, if you come from the Luo community, if you don't pay homage at the altar of Honorable Raila Odinga, you are dead on arrival. If you are from central Kenya, if you don't do so at the altar of President Uhuru Kenyatta, you are dead on arrival. If you are Rift Valley, you don't pay homage at the altar of William Ruto, you are dead on arrival. And those therefore who say that they are independent, that they are capable of articulating policy positions and intellectual position, those are individuals who will remain in their textbook position. And I fear Barrack and myself in that textbook position. We can orate in the void, but when the chips are down, we are not attractive to the void.
No, you're not. No. And this reminds me of a story I saw the other day. Cyrus Jirongo. He was Mr. YK92. Remember? They even named the 500 shilling after him. Jirongo. The other day, he was abusing the deputy president. He brought him on board for YK92. He was abusing him the other day.
Memories are short and selected.
Yes, and myopic. Myopic.
Well, there are no permanent friends and enemies, we have been told. When you look at the present alliances, I said a little earlier on, and those who are too young, because even 10, 11 years ago, there are people today who are mature who cannot remember that President Kenyatta was in ODM.
In 2005.
In 2005, in 2006. And that they were partners with Raila Odinga, with Kalonzo Musyoka. That only 3 years later, Kalonzo Musyoka was in a different formation, where he had now found Moses Wetangula, Mwai Kibaki, the retired president, and others. And that when we are now moving to 2013, again we find the formations are changing. And today we have got people who are in CORD, in ODM. The other day they're in government and they are saying, Raila, I'm going to tear gas you.
Imagine.
They are saying, Raila, Kalonzo, I'm going to arrest you. Yeah, and they were together a few months ago.
Marching, by the way. Marching and protesting.
So there's nothing. There's nothing that the political class believes in. The only word that correctly, adjective that correctly defines these people is that they are nihilists. They believe in nothing. They respect nothing. Nothing is sacrosanct before them. The only thing that is sacrosanct before them is raw, selfish ambition.
Nihilists. I love that.
Yes.
Dr. Tariq, you saying?
I'm saying that Barrack is right in identifying the problem that we have, and this calls into question, what can the people do? What should the people do? Because one of the things that makes me afraid is that those who have been ensnared and captured by these shenanigans are those of us who have gone to school. The people who are in rural Kenya many times are innocent. If you look at the social media, the people who are spewing venom and vitriol are not people who have not gone to school. That they are people, they are the professionals who are prostrating themselves and articulating this ethnic position, this narrow ethnic position. And Kenyans must be reminded that this country is not immune from chaos. If we continue on this trajectory, if we continue on this path, if we continue to behave as we are behaving, then let me tell you, the elections in 2017 will not be the election that we deserve and the election that we desire. We are in a situation where we can salvage ourselves, and we must do it now before it is too late.
Dr. PLO has hit the nail on the head, Barrack, because that is the biggest fear of everyone. I mean, yes, we talk about 2007, 2008, where we looked over the precipice and we didn't like what we saw and we pulled back. Can we pull back if it gets to that in 2017?
The rich man dies and goes to where the dead people go. And having observed certain things in retrospect, he says, send somebody down where I came from to say something to my brothers so that they may not come to this place. And he is told they have got Moses and they have got the prophets. Let them listen to them. Jeff, we don't love coming here to say the kinds of things that we say here. We'd rather be happy, quiet somewhere, enjoying the good life.
Yes.
But I think there's a certain sense in which even if we are not prophets within the biblical sense, we have got a mission and we have got to communicate certain information to the leadership of this country.
Pende wasipende.
Yes, and once we have done it, we are satisfied that we have told them. And if there are people out there with ears that listen, they should be listening now, because the horse is bolting. And it seems to be going down the precipice.
It has left
with the rider and with the followers. And so this is the time that we need to ask ourselves, can we actually create space for dialogue? Even if this dialogue is going to take place outside Parliament, as they're saying, because the interest groups, the stakeholders are very many. And once we have reached somewhere where we seem to be building consensus on the troubling issues, we can contextualize them within the framework of the legal apparatus and the legislative instruments of this country. We must start talking to one another soberly today. But if we don't, let us then not talk. But the time will come when we are going to say we wish we had talked, and it will be too late.
Absolutely. Miruru Warero, I think he nails it. He just echoes what you said. So tell Barrack Muluka and PLO that there is no permanent condition. We need only to unite. Can we unite? Because this rhetoric is so ugly. The vitriol is so dividing. Can we unite between now and 2017?
Yes, we can. Let us look at things in perspective, Jeff. There is an assumption that we as a country are capable of riding the crest of the problem that we have. But remember, law is made for man, not man for law. And what I saw yesterday when the president called Raila Odinga and his colleagues in the court was a very good thing. My own view is that we should build on that. What we now should expect is that there should be an engagement at that level. Then they instruct their technical men and women to work out what the issues are. And my view is we should not just focus on the IEBC. Let us ask ourselves, what are the problems as we see it?
What else?
And we list all of them and we look at them and we use the institution of the presidency. We use the institution of parliament. And we use the institutions which may be extra parliamentary, and we arrive at a consensus. And if it becomes necessary that we amend certain laws as a condition precedent to our going into the elections in a manner that is acceptable to all, then so be it, because ultimately it must be remembered that there are two ways of dialoguing. You can dialogue in order to prevent a war, or you can dialogue to stop a war. The choice is ours. We can dialogue now so that we prevent going into war, or we can go to war and consume ourselves and take the next 20 years and the next generation rebuilding Kenya, and it will not be easy.
No, it
the
won't.
choice is ours, and we must make it here and now.
Look at DRC. Look at Somalia.
Yeah.
You know, when these things happen, all bad things happen, you think that they happen to other people.
Right.
When you hear, for example, that there are scourges, you hear there's HIV, you say, okay, it happens to other people. You hear that accidents happen, you know that they happen to other people. You hear that nations and states collapse, you know that these are things which happen to other fellows. They don't happen to you.
Us. Yeah.
Until the day they happen to you, and then it is too late for you to do anything about it. And that's what Nikolai Ceausescu was sitting there and feeling that he was Nikolai Ceausescu and nothing could happen to him.
Untouchable.
Untouchable. And Mrs. Ceausescu was walking on the balconies and looking at the crowds. And she was saying, look at these worms. She was calling them worms. And Marie Antoinette was looking at the Paris rubble. And she was saying, what is wrong with them? Of course, the story is a little bit apocryphal, but she was saying, what's wrong with them?
Yes.
And someone was saying to her, oh, they do not have bread, and they're protesting because they don't have bread. And she's reputed to have said, if they don't have bread, why can't they eat cake? Because it is something that is distant.
Because they're so detached.
You're very detached
Yes.
from these things that are
Yes.
happening until the day that they begin happening. And when we hear about these things, you can ask the people of Sierra Leone. There was the middle class, the petite bourgeoisie,
Yes.
and the comprador bourgeoisies sitting and watching these things on TV the way people are watching us now.
Yeah.
And this thing transforms to the next level, that TV starts focusing on the fellows who are fighting, the Komajos and the rest.
Yes.
And you start seeing them moving from very far. They are in Limuru. They are coming. Then you start seeing, oh, they are in Kangemi. And you're
Before you
fixing
know
a
it-
cup of tea.
Yes.
And you're going back to watch TV. Before you know it, you see the kiosk of Mama Wamboi being capsized. You say, Allah, they have now gotten to Mama Wamboi's kiosk. What is happening?
Yes.
And before you know it, there are some other people who are watching, and they are now seeing what is happening to you. That is why we must address these things today,
Spot on.
now.
Spot on. Spot on. Because we always say, I come back to 2007, 2008. Did we learn any lessons from that, Dr. Did we learn any lessons? Yes, no one's ever been arrested. No one's ever been convicted. Victims are still suffering. You mentioned that gentleman who lost family
An
members.
entire family of 11.
Did we learn any lessons?
It appears to me that the old saying that the only thing we learn from history is that we learn nothing from history is beginning to happen in this country. It is as if 2007, 2008 was a distant thing that happened on television screens. And we must remind ourselves that it started in this way. We now are told that until IEBC is removed, we'll have these demonstrations every Monday. So once a week, this will spiral and something will begin to happen and it will spread throughout the country. Yet we have the ability to arrest it now. How can we arrest it? Simply dialoguing. And the beauty of the Kenyan situation is that all the individuals who are here have previously worked as a part of one government. Together. So that it's so easy.
There are no strangers here.
They are not strangers here, and they know what the country needs. What we ought to do is to ensure that this dialogue continues, that the grandstanding stops, that people identify, as I've already said, what is in the best interest of the country, how we ought to resolve it, and what we ought to do, and use our institutions. I'm told parliamentarians, a committee of parliamentarians want to go around the country to collect people's view. They don't need to do that.
Waste of time.
The Kenyan people know what the problem is. We had 2 aborted referendums requests through Okoa, Kenya. They had isolated their issues. The Okoa, is it Punguza Mzigo?
Yes.
They had isolated their issues. We know what the problem is. Let us resolve the problems sooner rather than later.
Gentlemen, final words. Barrack with the 2 R's, you get the first crack at it. That's your camera over there. Final thoughts.
You see, conflict itself is not a bad thing. Indeed, it's a healthy thing. People cannot always be in agreement on everything all the time. There must be times when people think differently about certain things, sometimes even very fundamental and significant things. What really matters is that they must recognize one another as being legitimate, and in this case, we have got a legitimate government. The legitimate government was legitimized by the IBC. It was legitimized by the Supreme Court, which is now in shambles, but it was there properly constituted. So there is a legitimate government in this country. There are also legitimate voices outside the government, and they are in the opposition, and they have got also the right to be listened to. They have got a right to express themselves, and they have got a right to feel unhappy about certain things in government. When you're in government, you cannot afford to be going around all the time telling them, shut up, we defeated you, we are going to preside over you for the next 30 years, 40 years. That is wrong. The damn thing is that these parties must find space to speak to one another, because it's after all not about you. It's not about President Kenyatta. It's not about former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and the people around them. It's not about the leader of the majority in the National Assembly. It's not about the leader of the minority. It is about this country. And those who are privileged to lead must provide leadership. And Kenyans are getting tired. They want you to sort out these things so that they can lead a normal life like all other people in civilized environments.
Absolutely. Civilized environments. Barrack with the 2 hours. Thanks so much. Dr. PLO Lumumba, you get the final word.
Not once, not twice, God has saved us from destruction. In the year 2007, 2008, we looked and walked in the valley of the shadow of death. Friends of goodwill told us not to follow that path. We appeared to agree, but it appears that our short memories have allowed us to forget. We are once again captured by ethnicity and narrow short-term interest. The political class, you have a duty and a privilege which was given to you by the people of Kenya. Let us use the institution of parliament. Let us use all our institutions to do that which is good and right. Let us swallow our pride. Let us remember that dialogue is the mother's milk of democracy. Let us remember that a nation that does not talk to herself is a nation that is destined to fail. We must dialogue, we must talk, we must isolate the issues. We must do this for this generation and generations yet to be born. Remember that we have no promise from God that we are immune from violence. If we continue to test God, our cup of iniquity is getting full by the day, and we shall pay for it. We can avoid that path if we remember that we hold this country in trust for the next generation. Let us do it now. The leader of the opposition meet the president meet the leader of the opposition, and let us solve this country's problems in a civilized way.
Indeed, indeed. Dialogue is the mother's milk.
Yes.
What do you people eat for breakfast, man?
Good food.
Sometimes it's just water and vegetables.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's continue talking. Because I always say, the moment we stop talking is the moment we start fighting.
Indeed.
And we don't want to go down that slippery slope. Sylvia Mwitumi sums it up best when she says, I'm at the edge of my seat. We need to wake up and smell the coffee as Kenyans. Let's uphold peace and shun psychophancy.
Thank you. Puts it very well.
Doesn't that kind of sum everything up?
That summarize it.
And then my shoe shine guy over at Valley Arcade, Peter Ombuna.
What does Ombuna say?
He says, I'm really enjoying the show. Congratulations to both Barrack and Dr. PLO Lumumba. That's Peter, my
Peter.
shoe shine guy.
My shoes need shining.
You've heard it, Peter. I'll organize. Gentlemen, what a pleasure. Let's keep doing this, folks, because there's no other country to go to. Which other Kenya are we going to go to? I was in DC last week, and we're saying the same thing. There's no other Kenya to go to. Remember. And at the end of the day, if not us, then who? If not now,
Then when?
then when? Tomorrow night, right here on JKL, you have to meet this young lady. I first met her. She was an orphan, 18-year-old, super brilliant student. Had won this Palm House Foundation scholarship, Zawadi scholarship, went to America, North Carolina. A student all the way. While she was there, she was sending money back to her siblings. Brilliant. Maria Githua is going to be here tomorrow night as an update. Where are they now, 5-6 years later?
Indeed.
The future of Kenya. Keep tweeting at Barrack M, at it's PLO Lumumba, at Koinange Jeff. The hashtag, I see a whole bunch of hashtags here. Use Madaraka, use Politics 101, use whatever you want to use. You know why? Because at the end of the day, we keep talking. Thanks so much for joining us. Good night. Good luck. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.